Okay. Greetings, everyone, and very special welcome to our guests, friends. You don't have guests yet, but yes, you have very special guest, the district director and our guest presenter, and the friends of Global Business Leaders Toastmasters Club. Do I need to just say that we are a virtual club and we meet the first and the third Thursday of the month? And we are a diverse club with people from around the world, different culture. There's always something new that we can learn from our club, from someone in our club. And today, certain people will be celebrating or are celebrating Diwali. So happy Diwali to those who are celebrating this holiday. It's a big holiday in India and for all Indians around the world. I'd like to turn over to someone who will be leading, facilitating this workshop. She is the sergeant at arms for our club and newly appointed District 36 Logistics Manager. Very committed, dedicated, always available to serve. She's really embodied service from the Toastmasters core values. I'd like to let Toastmaster Tonia Rahim have the floor. Please help me welcome our facilitator today, Tonia Rahim. The floor is yours, Tonia.
Thank you so much, Madam President Genevieve Johnson. Greetings, DTM Sandra Coles-Bell, District Director Ramu. It's a pleasure to have you all. Toastmasters and guests will certainly follow. I really want to extend a warm welcome to you. Thank you so much for joining us. So today, our sessions are going to be recorded. But before we begin, please note that if you prefer that your name or your picture or image is not recorded, I encourage you to click on the three little dots and change your name to guest and therefore close your cameras, okay? This recording will be available for you to take a look at on the District 36 website, and we will send a link to each and every one of you. We encourage you to mute your mics and unless you are speaking. And there will be an interactive time where you will have the opportunity to unmute and ask as many questions as you like. So let's take a look at today's agenda. Well, we have already set up the introductions and we are very excited because we are now heading to the really important part of today's meeting, which is indeed
our video interaction.
To have our 1 second, yes. So
Floor.
let me just do a quick mute so that we're all hearing, so that we could in fact listen to our main speaker for today. Now, during the session, please feel free to type your questions in the chat. We will keep a close eye on it so that we can address these questions during the Q&A time. Now, it is a delight indeed for me to welcome DTM Sandra Coles-Bell to the Global Business Leaders Toastmasters Club. Sandra has been the Executive Director of the National Black Sisters Conference since 2022, previously serving as the Program Director of the Archdiocese of Washington's Office of Cultural Diversity and Outreach. She also serves as a lector at her parish and the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception, where she is called to serve as a lector for masses on televised on multiple international networks. Now, she is asked to speak at various organizations on different topics, ranging from public speaking and leadership to topics on racism, leading religious retreats for groups. She is a Toastmaster member entering her 32nd consecutive year of membership and serving in leadership capacities twice at the highest level. She also has 3 children and she's the grandmother of 3. We are going to be learning from the best. Now, be aware that at Toastmasters, we use timing signals. And today we have helping us Toastmaster Bernadette. She's going to display green, yellow, and red signals to help us stay on track. It is my pleasure to introduce our main presenter for today, Sandra Coles-Bell.
Well, my goodness, thank you so much for that introduction and welcome to everyone. I don't know about you, but it's now that time of year in which that hour we lost, we're going to get back. And my body has been waiting for this weekend to come so long. I need that extra hour. I want to welcome everybody, whether you are a current Toastmaster, a former Toastmaster, welcome back. And if you are thinking about becoming a Toastmaster, my thought is, and my statement is, to go for it. It took me a long time to find this organization, but when I found it, something clicked, and I've been in it, as you heard, for over 30 years. Today, my talk is going to be entitled, The Power of 3. Now, why is it that I'm looking at 3? This number 3 to me is magical. I have 3 kids. I have 3 grandkids, but that's not the reason. It just is circumstance, but it helps when I can chunk things into 3 to remember what needs to get done, what needs to get said, what do I need to focus on, and then it helps me to relax. I don't know about you, but have any of you ever had that long list in your heads of 20, 20, and 20, and you're going, what is the first? I just chunk it up into 3s. And so that's what I have found to be incredibly helpful today. We're going to talk about what it is and how it is we can incorporate that power of 3 into our Toastmasters' lives. Now, in my life, my real life, when I was in college, and you know how you had to study and remember, I did everything by mnemonics. Anybody remember that? I can tell you the progression of a cell and how they develop by mnemonics. But who needs that information? But mnemonics has helped me in my life because, truth be told, my kids were named by mnemonics, E, T, and C. Terrible way to do it, but you know, when you get a little older and you get more than one child, you kind of have to remember who they are, what they're about, and what you need. And so to this day, I still point and I go, E, okay, E, this is T, R, you know, it helps. It just helps. And so the power of 3 is what we're going to focus on today. Now in Toastmasters, I apply this to 3 things. The first is whenever I'm called to ask to speak, I've got to know my audience. Who is it that I'm talking to? Who is it that I'm relating to? Who do I need to establish a rapport with, either on Zoom or in person? It's very different, but it's still very vital to everything that we're going to say and that comes out of our mouths and what goes out of our brains. But what's most important is what it means to you. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. First, know your audience. But I'm going to give you the second one. This is what I believe. You gotta know your material and your purpose. All right? If you don't know your material, if you don't know your purpose, you're kind of lost in the sands. That's when you need to have a myriad of notes, or you've been or need to study to make sure that your material is down pat. And then the third thing, and I think this is the most important, you've got to know what your passion is. If we can't speak from our passion, if we can't even live from our passion, it makes the day boring. And that comes across to the people that you're talking to. Now, one of my passions is, can you tell what it is? Toastmasters and public speaking. It's got to be over 32 years. Come on. Yeah. I love speaking and talking and learning about this particular organization. 100 years it's been here. And then the part is, what is it that has sparked the passion in me that I can give back to the audience? All right. So remember those three. Start off with that. That's the first power of three. Know your audience, know your material, know your purpose in that, and then know your passion. So let's back up to number one, your audience. Now, if you can see the silver hair that is on my head, you know that my experiences in life are not the same as my youngest child who's in her 30s. Vastly different. And so, how do I speak to her and her age group? But even more so, how do I speak to those who are younger than her? I laugh all the time when she says, Mom, I'm talking to the people at work and they're talking about stuff that I have no clue about. And I go, oh, that must be a unique experience for you. Come on, happens to me all the time. You know, the vernacular changes, the tempo changes, all of it changes within a split second. So if it's happening to a 30-year-old, imagine how it's affecting her mother. But making sure that we stay very current and can articulate with the audience that we are talking to is extremely important. So when somebody asks you to speak, ask, what's the demographics? Give me an idea. And that gives you a sense of what it is that you need to know and to understand about them. And then you can always research it. And don't make assumptions that they're going to be this or they're going to be that. Really study. One Google website isn't going to work for you. So really get out there and study well. The vastness. The second part about knowing your audience is if you're going to talk to a particular age group, hi, listen to them. Listen to them. Get the ideas directly from them as to what it is that they relate to and that they like. It's something that I find that works a great deal. And then knowing that audience and being able to relate to them is important. Now, that doesn't mean that you use the same terms as they do. My daughter has always cautioned me, Ma, you're using it wrong. So I've learned not to try to use the vernacular, but to understand it, and I can make it relatable within the speech that I'm talking to. Even if it's just a word, even if it's something, a phraseology, I can make it relatable. And that's what I tell you to do. Know your audience, not only the younger audience, but can you imagine those who are older than you? Oh, one thing. our cadence is a little bit slower. I'm not going to blame it on age. I'm just going to blame it on experience. The sap runs a little bit different. And so when you're speaking to an older audience, make sure that your cadence can also relate to them, to make sure that what you say can go in, be heard, be absorbed, and then be remembered. Because isn't that the reason that we came? So knowing your audience, knowing them well, being able to relate to them, either if they're younger than you are, if they're your colleagues, or if they're older than you are, being able to relate to them is the most important thing. And the way to do that is to research if you need to, and then also remember your cadence. Now, with a younger audience, I will speak a little bit faster. I've learned that. But with an older audience, I will speak a little bit slower because I'm in that age group. So it makes sense. Are you ready for the second part? Now, we've learned how to know our audience, and we really looked into getting to understand them. The second part is even more important. That means you've got to know your material, know what your purpose is for speaking. Is it going to be something that I need to impart? Is the subject itself going to be about my opinion, or is it going to be informative? Think about that. Think about what it is that you're trying to say to the people that you're speaking to. It's vitally important. Also, you want to make sure or understand if it's meant to be funny. There is nothing more distressing than expecting it to be a humorous and it falls flat. That affects the speaker if they're emotionally intelligent, but it also affects that audience and that receptivity as well. So trying to remember what it is that I'm talking about. So today's talk is meant to be a little bit of both, a little bit of all three. Don't forget the power of three. It's informative. It's meant to teach you something, things that I've learned over the years. It's also meant to be part of my opinion as well. You'll hear it. But I think that opinion comes from years of experience. So I'll put it into experiential opinion. And then a little bit of it's going to be funny. You've already heard me talk about my own wisdom that you can see articulated through the silver hair. And also the funny part about the mnemonics for my children. Humor thrown into spices up a speech, no matter what. I remember I used to be incredibly serious whenever I would give a speech. And one day, a very good, very sovereign Toastmaster walked up to me and said the following, and it has stayed with me ever since. Sandra, I want you to find your inner clown. When he said that, the light went off. What do you mean? And he said, you've got humor inside of you. Let it come out. You don't have to make the whole speech humorous, but dice it, spice it, and throw it in. So I encourage you to do that as well. When you are constructing your speech, make it so that if it's going to be informative, a little humor. If it's going to be experiential, if it's going to be your opinion about things, a little humor. And then if it's going to be funny, go all in, as they say. So remember those kinds of things. But make sure that if you're throwing it in, that it's well placed and well timed. Ill placed and ill timed can again make it fall flat for your audience. Now, the last part of this is something that I think each one of us really does know. It's the fact that we've got to find our own passion. The third part of my power of threes is know your passion. As a speaker, just as a person, know what your passion is. When I open my mouth to talk about Toastmasters, my belief is that it oozes out. It shows right at the beginning. Isn't it odd, though, that I am one of the highest introverts that you've ever seen or met in life? Oh, I love sitting in the corner in the back, in the dark, sunglasses on, hat on my head, and my arms folded, and not saying a word. But my passion to learn how to stand in front of an audience is what drives me. And in cases of the virtual world, oh my goodness, to learn how to transition into that at the drop of a hat was vital and very important. But my passion for it kept coming through over and over and over again. Yes, I'm passionate about Toastmasters. Yes, I'm passionate about being able to speak publicly. But I'm also passionate about knowing who Sandra Coles Bell is as a speaker. How many times have I walked away from a speech and someone will come up to me and say, "Oh my goodness, you remind me of Michelle Obama." And I go, "I wish, I wish." But she's somebody that I can exemplify her naturalness, her way of speaking, her way of being able to smile as she's talking. And when she talks about a serious subject, her articulation and her gestures shifts. She knows what she's passionate about. Now, I in no way am trying to be Michelle Obama. In fact, my favorite speaker of all times is Barbara Jordan, somebody that you may never have heard about, but she was in Congress and she was articulate as could be. Our Barbara Jordan never stood up when she spoke. She actually spoke from the Congress seat. But the one thing that got me about Barbara Jordan is her voice and her ability to use the power of articulation and cadence. And if anybody ever wants to give me a real compliment, and that'll show me how old they are, they'll walk up to me and say, "My goodness, you remind me of Barbara Jordan." That's when all the bells and the whistles go off. So again, know your passion. Know about what it is and who it is that you are. Trying to be another person is just not going to get it. But taking the tips that you see, taking the skills that they have, and being able to roll those out is vital and important. So I'm going to talk to you about something that I find that rolls into this passion. And that is what those delivery techniques are. Can I give you my secrets? One of them is, I love to gesture. My gestures will articulate and they will emphasize what it is that's coming out of my mouth. But I'm going to give you a secret about that. I'm also studying sign language. And so sometimes what you may see is me practicing my own sign. When I do the power of three, this is three in sign language. I can't even do this anymore comfortably. But once I do the power of three or show three or do something three, and often I'll deliberately put that into a speech, let me tell you what it does. I can tell either if I'm in person or on a screen, who knows sign language? And then that means I can relate even more to them. We've got that connection right there. So again, those kinds of things, using those kinds of gestures within your speech are virtually something that will hold your audience and keep them with you. Your body language. Now, in the virtual world, it's scaled a bit, but it doesn't mean that it's stopped. And so keeping it within the frame, you saw some of the best when they were doing the international speech, how they came closer to the camera, how they would draw back, how they made sure that they were framed within that space when we were doing virtual speeches. That's what you do as well. Gestures that are outside of the view of the audience mean absolutely nothing. Sitting and not being movable and relatable, even if it's just your shoulders and the top part of your body, is important. What does it denote? Energy. What does it denote? I'm here. And then the thing that is the most important is this right here, a smile. If you can relax and smile, it's so important. Now, I'll share with you. I've already said that I'm incredibly serious, and I tend to frown a great deal when I speak sometimes. But I have to remember that to the audience, they don't understand what this means. They do understand what this means. And so I'll make sure that if I frown, I'll smile. If I frown, I'll make sure that there's a counterbalance to it. Please make sure that when you're looking at that screen and that audience, that you're making yourself relatable. The last thing, and this is something that's most important in this virtual world, know where your camera is at all times, so that people feel as though that you are speaking directly to them. It's important. If you're going to glance at notes, it's okay. You can glance and look away. But that eye contact, which we had when we were in person, we now have to make sure that we capture when we're on screen as well. So there are times in which you have to call on the names of people like Ramu, like Harelda, like Augusta. You want to make sure that you've gone, right, Genevieve, right from the very beginning and pulled them in or somewhere within the course of your speech. These things are vital in this virtual world. It's important. Now, what does a smile do for me other than reduce your anxiety? It reduces mine. It really does. What did I share with you? High introvert, corner in the back in the dark, sunglasses on and a hat, something over my mouth, tape, duct tape on top of it, and not wanting to speak to anyone. Right, Augusta? She knows me. I love to be quiet. But when called upon to be in the front of the room, the same butterflies that you get, oh, I get as well. And when they say, you got to talk for this long, let's just put it this way. There's more than one butterfly, and I'm trying to get them all, and I do mean all, in formation. So helping to reduce my own anxiety is possible and, in fact, necessary. Some of the other things that I've used and the trips that I've used and the tricks that I've used in order to hack my own self is my use of my voice and being able to make sure that I can either speak faster or slower, that I can speak up or lower, making sure that even if I speak in a whisper, it's a stage whisper, so that people are not sitting there trying to say, what did she say? It's important. Use your voice, but you've got to know what your passion is. And if your passion is anything like mine, it's that passion to get the message across, to get the joke to uplift, to get the smile to engage, and to make sure that people truly walk away with understanding who I am, but more importantly, who they are and what tips they can take in order to make themselves a better speaker. So let's recap. Know your audience. Don't forget, they're most important to you. Next, know your material and your purpose. And whether you've been a Toastmaster for 2 years, 22 years, or 32 years, you've got an experience to share. And even if that experience is, this is what I used to be like, and now I'm not quite as this, I'm now this, it's important. Share your passion, know who you are, and then share it. And then lastly, just knowing your passion, knowing what you're all about, knowing what you want to share, and then doing it with a smile, with everything that it takes in order to get that joy. 3 letters, power of 3, that joy across to your audience. If you've understood where I am and what I'm about, give me a show of hands. And if you have questions that you want to ask, you now have the opportunity to ask those questions specifically about what it is that you want to get to know, what it is that's particular to you. And then we'll go forward from there. Don't forget, it's the power of 3s. Madam Toastmaster.
Oh, wow, the power of 3. It's like we just opened a box, a gift box that was packed with joy. There was so much there for us to learn. So we have the opportunity to ask questions. One of the things that, we come from all different parts of the globe. We come from all over the world, right here in this room right now. But there's something that we all have in common. And that is, we want to grow, we want to learn, we want to become more. So I know that you have questions. Feel free to raise your hand, or you can type your question in the chat and we will direct it.
Don't be shy.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? This is Bernadette. Can I go ahead and ask a question?
Yes, you can. Go right ahead.
Thank you very much for Sandra. Thank you so much. DTM Sandra, thank you very much for this beautiful, exciting, and skillful presentation. Now, what I would like to know, can you give more detail about knowing your material and purpose. I would like you to go a bit deeply into that because I want to know what exactly you mean by saying that, knowing your material and purpose. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for an excellent question, Bernadette. It's important. And so I did skim over that because there are so many, there's a lot of things. There's subjects out here galore. So one thing is, I've often gotten called to when I was working in the Archdiocese to speak on a particular topic that I wasn't an expert on. And so the first thing was the power of three. No, thank you. No, I really do appreciate it. And no, I'm not an expert on that. Do you get my point? So being able to know what you can comfortably talk about and what you can't comfortably talk about, even though the speech was months away, it would have required me to, one, shift my entire focus, wasn't something I knew, in order to really give it study and then be able to speak from that. And I didn't feel like I was of an expertise in order to do that. But I'll shift to another subject. Sometimes I'm called to do things on a particular aspect of racism or a particular aspect of public speaking or leadership. Now, you heard me. I've got passions with those. And so with that passion, I can churn that up, keep my attention on all the other things. Yes, I am still working full time, but still be able to spend time joyfully, three letters, joy, 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 joyfully going in and to delving a little bit deeper into those particular idioms. So those subjects are the things that I do. But I do say no when I don't know the material. And I do say yes when I feel like I have at least an understanding, one, a passion, second, and then a real joy of learning more. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
You are so welcome. And thank you for that exquisite question. And I hope that I answered it completely.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you. Aisha?
Good afternoon, and thank you for such a wonderful speech today. It was very enlightening. And if you saw me looking around, but while you were speaking, I was looking up the word passion. And the definition is a strong inclination towards an activity that people like, that find important, or find energy in. So my question to you is, how do you know what your passion is? And I say that because I think in life we all do a lot of things that maybe we're naturally good at. We get called to. I'm a homeschooling mom, full-time work, all the things that I do. But I still struggle with trying to figure out which is the passion, which one. Yes, I have inclinations towards things, but how do you find that passion? So that is my question for you.
Oh my goodness, that's a good one. And I'm the same way. Oh my gosh, I have a dozen passions. There are tons of things in which I love and get interested in. And I'll get interested in astrology. All right. Who knows? Look at me. Do I look like I'm somebody who's interested in astrology? But I am. But if it's something that can captivate me and keep me going, that's what keeps me going. And that's where I identify that particular passion. But having lots of them is nothing wrong with it. In fact, it shows the variability of what life is all about. And so as I said, how I define it is if somebody asks me to talk about something and I can go, yes, pretty quickly, it's because that's a passion for me. And that means I want to go ahead and learn a little deeper and dig a little deeper and make it a structured speech, opening body, an opening, a great body, and then a close. Do you get my point? Those are the things in which I know that I can be passionate about. But if it's somebody who comes and I'm a former scientist, did you hear the word former? Okay, that has 6 letters, but that's a former scientist because of the fact that I was a blood banker for years, wrote papers for years, and my passion waned. And I know about it. Now, can I go back and teach it very rudimentarily? But it's not something that I'm going to get charged up about, that I'm going to sit there and open up every scientific journal and go, this is what's current these days. No. Do you get my point? But if you're homeschooling, you've got a plethora of things that you're interested in and things that you're teaching. And you know, just like I know, that one subject is a lot easier and another subject isn't. Again, figure out that that subject that's a little easier may be an indicator it's your passion, or at least part of it. So having a million passions is great. If I invited you to my place, you would see I've got a bookshelf. My grandchildren walk in and say, Nana, this is a library. And I say, yes. And you can check out a book if you like. You get my point? Different subjects, and they're all categorized. Sound a little OCD, but it's true. But again, all of those things. So when that interest or the call, I'll go in and I'll make sure that I can get that interest and that passion recharged, resparked, elevate them a little. So I hope that answers your question. I hope that makes you feel, you know, I don't know if I have passion. You have a lot of them. Again, feel free to explore them as you wish or as you're called upon. All right. Thank you for the thumbs up. An excellent question. I found a kindred spirit out there. Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, so while I'm looking for hands to go up, I would like to throw my card. Yes, President Genevieve, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Sandra. Wow. I'm so happy that this is being recorded because the members who were not able to make it today will have the opportunity to just watch it and then get everything that you shared with us today. Thank you so much. I learned so much and I say, wow, Sandra is such a resource. Thank you very much. My question, I have a grandson who's also attending. He's a student and he's studying political science. And for the young people, oftentimes I see this with young Toastmasters, younger Toastmasters. They come and say they are not sure about how to pick a topics or a subject, and then how can we, or what advice can we give to someone like Chris Emmanuel? Thank you for opening your camera. What advice can you give to the young people and then help them find a purpose or the passion or anything that will help them deliver memorable speeches?
Oh, that's a great question. And that's one I think that's going to be very personal to each person. But this is the way that I do. You've already heard me share. Got a ton of things that I'm interested in. Don't come to my house. You'll see the